everybody, this is the Smogon Tour Season 19 Finals. We've got Marshall.Law, French DPP prodigy in the left-hand corner, feared by trainers all around the globe. He had a very impressive record in SPL 5, going something absurd like 7 or 8-1. And he has been here before. He has made it to the Smogon Tour playoffs on a prior occasion, taking out Heist before losing to Undisputed, which is no mean feat. In the right-hand corner, we've got All-American girl Thatsjustpeachy, cornerstone of several team tournament teams, such as the Circus Maximus Tigers in SPL and US East in World Cup, but she is most notably known for her mastery of the black and white overused tier, and being the runner-up behind Stunch in the official Smogon Tournament number 8. I am going to leave these two players' journeys throughout this playoff bracket with my sloppy Camtasia Studio editing skills. Please enjoy. So we're starting this final off with black and white, where Peachy's running the center weatherless hyper-offense team as popularized by Smurf, while Marshall is meeting her with a hyper-offense of his own, although he is trading a hard hitter for the spikes with his Custap Skarmory. And the unconventional choice of Cobalion really stands out here. Incidentally, it was popularized by Peachy's US East teammate Dragon User in the 2013 World Cup. It can either keep momentum, or on an offensive team like this, super offensive I should say, it can run a double booster set a la Terrakion. Let's go. So, seeing as we are assuming that it is Custap Skarm, as it looks like a Custap Skarm hyper-offense team, that it will have rocks and spikes, and therefore this Jirachi will not be partaking in any stealth rock shenanigans. Therefore, it is probably a mix set that is trying to break down physical walls for its physical sweeping teammates, Salamence and Cobalion. Or it could also be a Calm Minesweeper. Either way, Starmie wants nothing to do with it, because it does pack super effective attacks against it, and in comes Volcarona, indeed, dodging the Thunder. Now, Marshall doesn't really want to switch into this, and he can't get swept, because he's got Custap Skarm, which means it's got Sturdy, and it's also got Brave Bird, so, you know, no rocks are up, so he can always just, you know, scare it out, and just Jirachi's not doing a hell of a lot against Peachy's team, as you can see, so he's just going to sack it and maybe go for Thunder Pairs if Peachy gets greedy for some reason. But, you know, Peachy takes the free kill. Nicely done, because Salamence can also check it, but doesn't want to run into any HP Ice shenanigans. So, since Jirachi was worthless, it was better to let it die. So, Skarm sets up rocks, knowing that even if Volk attacks it and takes it down to Custap, well, down to Custap, but to Sturdy, then it can Brave Bird, and if Volk stays and it dies, and if it switches, then Skarm will kill itself, thus preventing any spinning fun. So Starmie comes in on the rocks, and Ice Beams. Marshall was going to try to set up rocks until he got into Custap so he could Brave Bird, but Peachy has none of that, and, well, not to mention, she would die from all the Life Orb Rapid Spin hits, so she just takes him out with 2 Ice Beams. So Gengar comes in, you know, looking like Scarf, even though when we think Ments on Hyper-Offense teams, we think Scarf, you know, to roll through weakened teams with those fast Moxie boosts. But threat of Gengar, you know, Scarf Guard, sends Starmie scurrying, and if this is Scarf Ments, then he could possibly have been drawing a Hydro Pump or Psyshock to put Starmie in Dragon Claw range. You know, 80% is kind of a stretch for Dragon Claw, but I could see it doing 70%, and so that's very impressive. And it also has Fire Blast, which would deal with the obvious Scizor switch-in, which would want to eat up the Shadow Ball. When Balloon comes in, I guess it was kind of a sack, and Ments takes care of that too with Fire Blast. Starmie comes in thinking, hey, this is Scarf, then it has to switch out. But it got Intimidate on the Starmie earlier, so it is probably not Scarf, and as we see, it was probably some sort of Dragon Dancer. Or, it wasn't a mix set, it didn't have Life Orb. Dragon Dance Lumberry, that's my guess. And which could, you know, screw with lead Breloom, that would sort of mess with lead Skarm. Nice thinking there, and it's also a very potent, very underrated sweeper, especially since everyone thinks Scarf. So Starmie takes it out, and Zam comes in, setting it scurrying with the threat of Shadow Ball. Volk, you know, not gonna be getting a chance to sweep at 50% health, although it might be able to grapple against Cobalion. Taunt would prevent that. So Volk is gonna be the sacrificial lamb here as Zam throws out the Shadow Ball, and then the Psychic can take it out. So the response here, I'm assuming, is Scizor, perhaps Dragonite, not Dragonite, because HP Ice and Rocks are up, so Multiscale isn't going to be saving it. Most he could do is break the Sash with extreme speed. So Scizor comes in, ready to Sword Dance Bullet Punch. You know, Sword Dance looking pretty good for a sweeper, but there's HP Fire. So down goes Scizor, no one expected that. In retrospect, it might have been better to Bullet Punch to at least break the Sash, because no one really runs Life Orb Zam in black and white. So, because the only resist is Cobalion, and Cobalion probably loses to Scizor one-on-one if it's a Sword Dance. Especially since it has to use close combat to lower its admittedly great defense. So, knowing that there's no risk of an HP Ice kill, the Dragonite comes in and is going to go for a free dance, perhaps? Or, you know, just attacking, and I think Fire Punch was better there, unless the move of choice was, well, even Earthquake might have been better, but Fire Punch might have been better there, so, you know, not giving a free attack to Gengar, because, you know, it wasn't going to HP Ice so whether you had priority on that turn or not was irrelevant. So I think Fire Punch was better there. As Trick and Gengar goes down, it is now the Dragonite is now scarfed and locked into Outrage. So Cobalion is probably going to be able to deal with it if it is not a setup set, but if it is a setup set, I think that's game. Because if it can handle Garchomp, well, it needs 2 Swords Dances to handle Garchomp, and if it's got Swords Dance, then it can't outrun Starmie. And depending on the Garchomp set, then what goes down, if it's like Dual Chop, I don't see that happening, but you know, then we might see Peachy able to come out on top, although I kind of doubt that. We see another Swords Dance, and we don't see leftovers. So could this be? It's not Lum, is it? It could be like Fist Plate to jack up the attack on Scarm. Surely the other move is Rock Polish. I swear Cobalion gets Rock Polish. Well, I guess not. When I said double booster, I must have been thinking of Sub Swords Dance. If it does get Rock Polish, then please forgive me, I'm blanking. But, it subs down to Salix, so that's terrifying as the Dragonite switches out, you know, hoping to go to Starmie. And the close combat at +4 is going to take it out. And there's no Rocky Helmet, so the Cobalion's going to live and finish this game off. So Marshall's leading 1-0 after Black and White. Here we are in DPP for Game 2. Marshall's got a Metagross lead. Trick Scarf, probably not. Trick Iron Ball, maybe. Fortax, very good. Surprising for people when they get their Swampert and Powdon blown up turn 1 and don't get rocks. But it's most likely one of the rock setters with a million berry variations. And there we see Lum, so no Akka, no rare Shuka. And Zapdos is not a Specs lead. And it wastes the Lum Berry with Thunder Wave as rocks go up. And Zapdos, you know, usually is Specs nowadays, and it should be using Thunderbolt on Metagross lead, not Heat Wave, because Heat Wave encourages T-Tar and Heatran to switch, and whereas Thunderbolt keeps them out and trashes everything else. And it's a lot worse to Heat Wave into T-Tar or Heatran than it is to Thunderbolt into a ground. You know, Flygon U-turn with rocks up early. It's not a great situation to be in, obviously, but it won't kill you. Anyway, we see the second Lum Berry wasted by Thunder Wave in 2 turns, as Tyranitar eats it as well. So, you know, Marshall's like, yeah, T-Tar doesn't want any of that. I'll just go to Metagross and threaten to blow it up. So, Peachy is going to go for another Thunder Wave. Physically defensive, really wants that Tyranitar paralyzed. If this is a paralysis team, good odds of something like a Togekiss that would love to have a paralyzed Tar. Can you imagine hitting Stone Edge through Paraflinch? Fuck that. It's fucking Stone Edge, first of all. Anyway, so Peachy, fearless, going with the Thunderbolt, not afraid of the explosion, you know, maybe saying, hey, you know, I want this Metagross down too. That's also a target for my Iron Head Jirachi or my Togekiss. So, there's the full para, you know, you forget, 25%, that's pretty high, all things considered. And decides, you know what, I got the damage off, explosion's coming, I want to save Zapdos, and in comes Jirachi. The resist saves it by the skin of its teeth, as it takes 87% and hangs on with 14 after leftovers, you know, counting Stealth Rock. So in comes Bronzong, who, you know, can't really be scratched too badly by Jirachi. And Zapdos comes right back in on the assumed Earthquake or maybe Gyro Ball. Trick Room. Marshall's running a looking like a, you know, pretty standard-ish bulky offense team. You know, Peachy's got the textbook of what's it called? Paralysis so far. You know, T-Wave Zapdos and Jirachi, everyone's favorite. So the Zapdos roosts up back at full. If it is physically defensive, we know it doesn't have a boosting item. Probably isn't Dragon Dance with the Trick Room Zong. So if she really wants to, she can Thunder Wave it, and, you know, screw it that way. But she would prefer Zapdos to stay at full, so the Jirachi sack and a Stone Edge miss. So, if Lum and under Trick Room, I would imagine it's some sort of mix set. to, you know, break scarms and stuff for the Bronzong. Excuse me, hiccups. So Peachy dodges another Stone Edge. Yeah, it's missing already. Imagine it when a Togekiss is trying to flinch you with paralysis factored in. Peachy decides, you know what? Last turn of Trick Room, I'm going to save this Jirachi. You know, I've been blessed by the Pokemon gods for now, so, you know, I'll get in Breloom, who doesn't really care about it. So, Breloom on a Paralysis team is interesting because, you know, it counters Tyranitar and the grounds that don't get affected by Thunder Wave, and it can also spread Paralysis with Stun Spore. And I am not sure why we did not see a Spore there, because Tyranitar's Lum was already wasted, and that would have really crippled this Dragonite. Of course, this Dragonite could have also ran Lum, but, you know, that's information, and it can't use Lum later to dodge a Thunder Wave. So we see a Fire Blast, makes sense. Under Trick Room, Mixed Knight becomes even more devastating. And it's not Lum, so... not sure why the Spore was wasted. Because if Tyranitar stays in, then, you know, Seed Bomb doesn't even kill it, so it might Fire Blast you. So Starmie comes in and Thunder Waves, I am not sure. If that Zapdos doesn't have HP Ice, I am not sure what Peachy is going for there. Starmie goes down, Rocks are staying up, Zapdos is taking 25%. You know, even a spin would have been acceptable. Because I guess, realistically, Starmie is not going to be handling that team very well. The most it could do, well, I guess it could force Bronzong to explode on it, I suppose. And the T-Char is shown to not be Pasho, so it could pound it pretty hard. And even engage in more T-Wave shenanigans if it so desired. And I guess the Zapdos doesn't have HP Ice. What else could it be using, you know? Heat Wave, maybe? She's afraid of bulky SD Scizor. But, you know, the Jirachi could probably have fire. It does have HP Ice. There's no way that's Grass. So, I'm not sure what was going on there. I guess maybe she predicted that Tyranitar would come in, but it's not like Thunder would make a difference, and she could T-Wave and roost that shit off. Speaking of attacks missing, Fire Blast misses. Not sure, depends on the depth investment that Zapdos has. It's heavy on physical defense, not a hell of a lot, but we're about to see how much right here, unless there's more luck into others' paralysis. So, Zapdos back at full. Of course, it'll never be truly at full after it switches out because of Stealth Rock. So, Zap switches out here, and in comes Tyranitar. What kind of Tyranitar is this? I mean, the Jirachi could have Rocks, although I'd imagine they would have been set up against the Tar earlier, so I would assume that this Tar probably has Rocks. It does. So this could also be a T-Wave Tyranitar, you know, just T-Wave Crunch, just an item, you know, whatever Resist Berry needs. Probably Pasho for that team since the Water Resists are not looking super hot. And Crunch does not get the job done, and Dragonite takes out another victim. So, in comes Cresselia, the Mon that gave Heist so much trouble in the semifinal series. And Breloom goes down to a Psychic, so I think we're seeing the same or a very similar set. It's pretty much an offensive Calm Minder. So Zapdos comes in, and it is 4-2 Marshall right now. I'm not really seeing... well, it's a bulky Zapdos, and it's slower than Cress. Well, then again, Cress isn't... I mean, Breloom isn't that fast, so it's no wonder that Cress outsped it. So, Thunder Wave, and I guess... Peachy's last, could it be like a Machamp? Because that could realistically win with him, you know, dumps on Tyranitar, can take a hit from Heatran. Oh, it can't take an explosion from Heatran. Maybe if it goes for hacks to, Parahacks to get a sub up. So, I suppose that, if the Machamp is the last, although 2 fighting types, well, I guess it's not really bad, you know, because the weaknesses are handled and such. There's also the possibility of Togekiss, and Togekiss really would have appreciated those rocks spun away. I do not think Thunder Waving the Dragonite was worth it at all, seeing as it... I guess it let Tyranitar get the crunch off, but with Zapdos not being inhibited by rocks, then it would not have been nearly as big a deal. So there's a Spadef drop from Cress, and kind of wondering why Marshall wasn't Calm Minding more, since that would have really put the nail in the coffin. And that Zapdos has a lot of physical bulk, even with a minus attack nature. Heat Train still dishes out considerable damage with Explosion. So we see the Suicide Thunderwave as after Zapdos survived that and the Crunch. So we're about to see if it's a moment of truth. If it is a Sub-Machamp, it's not Sub-Machamp, it is Togekiss. Now, if this is Bolt, then, well, Tyranitar is clearly not hitting really well, but if it's Bolt, it might be, because Bronzong Explosion will probably do the deed, but if it gets enough nasty plots, but then it could theoretically 2-KO, thus only needing one flinch, and Cresselia would stand no chance. And then we would go to an Aurus game. Stone Edge was doing no damage there. And the calc is, for Bold, max HP, max defense Togekiss, and then it doesn't even come close to, well, I guess it comes relatively close to killing after Sand, but it won't ever kill after Sand. She's going, nasty plot mode. And Air Slash flinches and such, and she realizes, hey, I need these. Stone Edge misses again, but this is roost fodder, so might not be at full, but it just needs to be high enough to get that third nasty plot, so it can have the highest chance of 2-KOing Bronzong, thus only needing one flinch to win the game. So this comes down to whether, I suppose, and the calc is against that same Togekiss, Bronzong has a 56% chance to kill with Explosion, but that's even higher after Sand. The chance of Togekiss living Explosion and Sand is minuscule. It's like 1% or something. So, by Trick Rooming and Exploding, then Marshall gave Togekiss the chance to Roost Stall and win the game, but he gets the 56% roll, which, those are good odds, and Marshall is the winner of Smogon Tour 19. So, great job to both of you guys. It was a pleasure to watch, and well done to Marshall. Congratulations. I feel like I already said that, but yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. And sometimes there's more to a battle than spamming AIDS, choke, cancer. See you all later.